I've noticed when I go back to like sit down and edit videos, I'm like, Haley, how do you have 40 minutes of footage for one simple video that when edited down takes about 10 to 15 minutes? And it's because when the camera turns on, I turn into like this little theater kid, and I'm like making all these faces and these weird sounds and doing weird voices. Like, knock it off, get your act together, and let's get serious and film a video. Hey guys, thanks for coming back to check out another video. So I see at the end of the year so many people doing their like ranking videos of like best eyeshadow palettes of 2020, or you know, ranking all of the palettes that I bought in 2020, or just ranking my entire palette collection, which ranking my entire palette collection kind of scares me. So I've really wanted though to start doing those kind of ranking videos. I think they're a lot of fun. I also think they're fun because they will change over time, even for me as a person. I find that what I'm drawn to, it really like ebbs and flows like the seasons, you know? So then I saw Steph Lyons do a video where she was like, these are my palettes that I can't live without in my collection. And I thought, I could kind of combine those two videos, like a ranking video and that. But I do have to say, like, mine's a hair different. I have the 6 palettes that are currently inspiring me the most right now, and I have ranked them for you. So if that sounds like something you are into, then let's get right on into it. All right, so palette number 6 is going to be the Menagerie Killer Purr palette. I really love the color story of this palette. To me, this is like Subculture's like bigger, grown-up, like edgier sister. Like, I don't know, it's just the vibe that I get from it. I really love the like mattes in here. They really do help fill a lot of those voids within my collection. Like, I feel like within other palettes, like I'll be like trying to do a look and I'm like, oh, if it only had this particular matte shade. And 9 times out of 10, said matte shade comes from this palette. So the reason it is coming in at number 6 is because of that. It is a companion palette. I rarely use this as like a one and done palette for like a look. And I don't mind like mixing and matching and dipping into multiple palettes, but I do think that having like palettes where you can just solely use them for looks is important. And not that I can't do that with this palette, but it only has 2 shimmer shades, which I do typically like either like an even breakdown or more shimmers than mattes. And the 2 shimmer shades that are in here are darker than what I typically use. So while I have created looks solely using this palette and I have enjoyed them, I just see this more as like a companion palette within my collection. And while the mattes in here are really buttery and like soft and easy to blend, they can be a little bit crumbly. Like, it's not powdery like an ABH shadow, but like actually crumbly. So I've never really had that experience before, but overall, like, it doesn't really, like, it doesn't change that they still perform well. So I don't mind that the formula is like a little bit off, but it can make it hard to pick up the right amount of product on your brush. So, but yeah, palette number 6, that has been inspiring me the most right now. All right, so palette number 5 probably should come as no surprise to you that it's in this video. However, it might surprise you that it is palette number 5. So I have the Tribe palette from Juvia's place, and unfortunately, I think this has finally been discontinued. I know there was some talk about like, is it been discontinued or hasn't it been discontinued? And then I was seeing it pop up on their website and you could like buy it. So, but now when I look for it on their website, I don't see it at all. But here's what it looks like on the inside, and the packaging is so reflective. It always makes it really hard for the camera to register the shades. So I'm not gonna bring it in any closer because when I do, the light reflects on it funny, but I really do love this palette. It's no secret that I love me some green shades, and hello, that's what this palette is. So I have done looks using this palette solely, and I really do enjoy that when it comes, like when I'm said and done and I have like my final look. However, this palette is coming in at number 5 as far as like being most inspirational on the list, because while I can create solo looks from this palette, I feel like they tend to look the same no matter what I do. and that's kind of a bummer, but it doesn't really detract from how much I do love and enjoy this palette. I really love using it as a companion palette, much like the Menagerie one. So I'm happy that I do have it in my collection. The only shade in here that is like a dud shade that I just don't get along with is the shade Sand right here. It is like this kind of like muted blue-green kind of teal color, and it's a beautiful shade that is needed in this palette, I think. However, the formula of this shade just doesn't match up with other Juvia's Place mattes. It's a little patchy, and then when you go to like blend it out, like if you're using it in the outer V, for instance, when you go to blend it out, a lot of it fades away, so there's that like back and forth battle of like building up, blending out, building up, blending out, and it gets a little tiresome after a while. So I tend to like just ignore this shade if I'm being honest. But yeah, palette number 5 that inspires me the most. All right, palette number 4 is the only cool tone palette that made it in here, and so by saying that, I'm sure you can guess what it is. It is the Persona Identity palette. I absolutely love this. This is my perfect cool tone palette. There is not a dud shade in here. There is not like a shade that I would take out and replace with something else. I think it's a great balance of shimmers and mattes. This is my dupe palette. Instead of buying the Natasha Denona Glam palette, I come and reach into this, and I'm so happy with like the formula and everything like that. The only reason it's coming in here at like middle of the pack is because I just typically don't wear a lot of cool tones. I enjoy them when I do wear them, but right now in this stage of life, I'm just more reaching for like neutrals or like colorful neutrals and not so much cool tones. So while I do enjoy this, and I think I do get a good amount of use out of it, I just didn't feel like it should rank any higher, but it ranks higher than the other two because I can come to this palette, create such a variety of looks, and I have loved every single one of them that I have created. All right, palette number 3 is the OMA Beauty Black Magic Allure palette. I always want to say UMA Beauty, but I've heard a lot more people say OMA Beauty. So this is what it looks like on the inside. This is just subculture to me, but like a more condensed version and a version that makes sense. I love the breakdown of this palette. It is an even split of shimmers and mattes, and I like that the shimmers are on the top and the mattes are on the bottom. It just makes it easy. I think it makes it easier for your eyes to like digest and for your brain to formulate looks. So there is not a bad shade in here. The two darker shades, the green and the purple, Lush and Opulence, they do take a little bit more work to like blend out and fool with, but I'm not gonna like fault that to the formula. I think those colors are just difficult to formulate to begin with. So the green in here, Lush, performs a lot better than the green from the Tribe palette. So this is the shade that I tend to like reach for if I'm using the Tribe palette and want that kind of like teal green shade. The shimmers in here are interesting, not in like a bad way. They just don't feel like your standard shimmer. They almost feel like a glitter, but I haven't been able to find anywhere that they are actually glitters. So I think they are just shimmer shades. It's just like a more chunky, stiff, kind of dry formula. Again, not bad. You will experience like fallout with them, but I have found that just using like an eye primer, concealer, a glitter glue, using my finger, anything like that, like the fallout, it's minimal from what I have found, but it easily wipes away too. So I really do enjoy this palette. This is like one reason why I do want to finish off Subculture, because if I had to, like if you made me choose between the two of them, this is by far like a better version, better quality, like better formula. And so I would rather get to like just have this one be the like one in my collection. All right, these last two palettes are probably the newest out of all 6 of these within my collection, but I just cannot get these palettes out of my head. I can't like put them down. Every time I open them up, I get like excited, and it was hard to put them in the 2 spot and the 1 spot. And I feel like if I sat down to film this tomorrow, they would switch. It would just, so they're kind of fluid in that way. So the first, well, not the first one, the one that is in the number 2 spot as I sit here and film this is the Festival palette from Juvia's Place. I never hear anyone talk about this palette, and the few times I have heard this palette mentioned, it's been like in ranking my Juvia's Place eyeshadow palette videos, and this one seems to always fall near like the last of the pack. Like it's never a top palette. But for me, I absolutely love this. Now, when you're looking at it, you might think like, that's not really that cohesive of a color story, but I have created so many looks just using this palette, and I just absolutely love it. This palette is the reason I have fallen in love with hot pink shades because of this center one. It is so easy to work with. It blends out nicely. It's not like difficult at all, at least that I find. I will say it does stain your eyelids a little bit, so if you're not into that, then skip over it. But just this palette as a whole, it's so nice, and there's not a bad shade in here. And like I said, every time I open this, I'm like, oh, I want to do this, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. Like it's so hard to actually come to a decision on what I want to do because I do find this so inspiring. I think it would be my #1 Juvia's Place palette, but shh, don't tell the tribe that. All right, so if you've been here for any length amount of time, you will be able to probably guess what the #1 most inspiring palette currently is for me in my collection. That is my ABH Jackie Aina palette. I really bought this palette on a whim, like not gonna lie. It was on sale when I bought it, and it was kind of one of those things like, you know, I really do. I like Jackie and I appreciate her as a content creator. I kind of want to support her, so it was like the stars align. But then once I got it, I was like, Haley, what were you doing? What were you thinking? But the more I have used this, the more I have fallen in love with this. I've featured this in quite a few videos on my channel. It's in my current rotation for Pan Those Eyeshadows. I have a video where I am using a favorite palette, which is this one, but my least favorite shades within the palette. And even that eye look that I created using this palette and my least favorite shades, I was still blown away by it, still super in love with it. This palette has just really drawn me out of my comfort zone. I just really appreciate it and everything that it has to offer. And I think that's why these two palettes, even though they're newer, rank above the other ones, because the other ones are kind of safe palettes for me. Like these are colors that I'm really comfortable with, know what to do, know how to handle them. So while they're still very inspiring, they don't really force me to be super creative, if that makes sense. Whereas these, the two color stories of them, when I first got them, I was like, ew, what did I do? I had like such regret buying them. But after using them and playing with them and getting more comfortable with them, I am just so in love with them. So that is it. That is my 6 most inspiring palettes as of right now, ranked. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you agree or disagree with where I like put anything if you want to, or let me know what your current most like inspiring palette is that you've been reaching for. And I just thank you guys so much for watching, and I cannot wait to catch you in the next video. Bye.